on. Yeah, just come on.
Yeah, I got reception now. I'm good
All right, perfect. Are you gonna come on video, Ben, or no?
now. I guess I'll try and get carpal tunnel holding my phone up. Let's see.
Just come on.
There we
There
go.
we go. All right, cool. Just come on. All
Yeah,
right,
I got reception now. I'm good.
perfect. Are you gonna come on video, Ben, or no? All right. I'm
Uh,
getting a full
I guess
echo.
video, Ben, or no? Carpal tunnel holding my phone up. I guess.
Yeah, Justin, go ahead and get us live. Let me know if we are. All right, cool.
Yeah, we're live, man.
Oh, we are live. Oh, well, I'm getting it. Hey, everybody. We're just having a little technical stuff here. Just give us 1 second to make sure it gets worked out. I'm hearing echo. But that's probably like a 10-second delay. Justin, any ideas on that? Maybe it's gone now.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. All right. I think we're good now. Yeah, it stopped. And drop the where the audience viewing link is in the chat for me, Justin, if you don't mind.
Sorry about that, Patrick. Really quick, sorry about that. Yes, we are live. Our audience can see us. And what was your question one last time?
Oh, if you the viewing link that they have, if you'll drop that in the chat for me, just so I can see what they're seeing.
Of course. Yes.
Well, welcome everybody. Sorry, I was a bit echoey and trying to figure out if you were getting that echo or not, but it sounds like we're all good. Ben's computer is in the shop, so he's on his phone walking up a hill.
I'm not going up a hill anymore. So you missed the video.
Yeah. So the thing with Ben is that anytime I do any type of a live event with him, he's either on a treadmill, he's walking up a hill. He just doesn't sit still. So Ben, is one of the secrets to happiness just being in motion?
Well, I mean, you could make an argument for the beneficial neurotransmitter response from, I don't know, sauna, cold plunges, exercise, walking. So yeah, I kind of live life through the lens that we live in this comfortable post-industrial era in which we're air conditioned and heated and sitting in boxes all day, and that's a kind of an evolutionary mismatch in terms of the way our ancestors would have lived. So my take on it is, hey, if I'm doing a video or a call or something, why don't I walk around a little bit and keep the body stimulated, and I feel way better when I do that versus just like sitting in a chair in front of a screen next to Wi-Fi all day.
It makes all the sense in the world, and I was so obviously half joking because it is fun to always get on these live things with you and have you in motion and never really sitting still. But at the same time, I think there is significant validity to the fact that if you're moving, if you're exercising, there's all the neurobiological aspects of that you described that are relevant. But I had read studies, just because we're on Hacking Happiness, that I think there are multiple studies there. Maybe the actual parameters are a little different, but something to the effect of walking for 40 minutes 3 times a week had a better impact on people's depression and moods than taking SSRI drugs, as a routine, for example. You're probably familiar with some of those studies, I'd imagine, Ben.
Oh yeah, especially walking outdoors where you get the so-called, like Japan, they call it Shinrin Yoku, right? Forest bathing. You get the phytochemicals from plants and the sunshine and the fresh air. So yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting that if you could take everything that movement and exercise does for you and package it up into a medication in terms of how many problems that movement solves from a biological and psychological standpoint, you'd be a very wealthy person if you could figure out how to bottle that up. And of course, the problem is that the reason it works is the same reason that you feel way better when you climb to the top of the mountain versus get dropped off by a helicopter on top of the mountain, right? Part of it is just putting in the work.
100%. And I could tell you from my personal experience, having been injured many times, like in the midst of maybe training for something, or even just last year skiing and blowing out a knee, and as soon as you can't do your normal fitness or even just normal walking and movement routines, when weather permits, my wife and I literally do 2 walks a day. We do one every start our day, with a walk, and we end our day after dinner with a nice walk up here in the mountains. And the impact that has on just your general sense of happiness, joy, and well-being is immeasurable, because when my knee was injured and I couldn't do that anymore, I could feel my moods, absolutely shifting. So you'd be surprised. You're under a lot of strain, a lot of pressure. Get out and go for a walk. You're going to feel a lot better by the time you get back. So anyway, I'm glad you're setting the example for us, Mr. Greenfield, and going for your walk over here. So just as a little quick housekeeping, first of all, thank you for joining us here. And we can take your questions. We have time. We're leaving time to take your questions. If we have some people who pre-submitted their questions. If you didn't, but you have a question for Ben or myself, you can email support@revealedfilms.com. We have people standing by. They'll receive your email with a question, and they'll put it into a spreadsheet that I have up on my screen, and we'll read these questions, and we'll help you out. Some of you have pre-submitted questions, and I'll just say kind of up front here, wow, there's some really tough situations out there. I have complete empathy, for these tough circumstances, and we'll discuss it and see if there's anything that we can come up with that might be helpful to you. Some of them may be beyond our scope, but I'll read the questions nonetheless, and if it's beyond what we think we can comment on, we will. And in those situations, I'm going to refer to Ben as Dr. Greenfield.
I don't even have that press me on the doctor T-shirt, so yeah.
Yeah, you might. Yeah, I might have to characterize you as the love doctor, but anyway, some of these are relationship questions. So, for what it's worth, folks, we're going to try to help out in any way, shape, or form. All right, so let's just jump in for a moment here and just have a conversation. Now that you've been through the journey of hacking happiness, we always like to connect with you, and Ben did just such a brilliant job of hosting this series, having the conversations. It's a special talent and gift to be able to do what Ben did, and have the curiosity and the focus to be able to ask the right questions and really extract from these experts some brilliant nuggets of understanding and information that can have a massive impact on your life. But one of the things I think I'd like to start out with, Ben, since you were in the seat, talking to these people, were there some things that come to your mind that really were impactful for you, that you learned during the course of of your journey through hacking happiness, that you'd like to share?
Oh man, well, I don't want to necessarily push repeat on the stuff we talked about last time, unless folks on this call didn't get a chance to see that.
This is a different group, so you can repeat on that.
Yeah, I'd say a few things that come to mind. There's a lot, obviously,
happiness that
over the course of dozens of interviews, but the main things that come to mind right away is, first of all, a sense of purpose and meaning. Knowing your why is that was a common thread, and I realized that that's something that you hear over and over again. I don't think that's a foreign concept to a lot of people, but the idea of knowing how to identify that purpose and that why is, I think, a little bit more important. There's one way to go about it, and that would be the very simplistic, like author Mark Manson type approach, which is what makes you forget to eat and poop. And that certainly can give you some clues. But, from a more systematic standpoint, I think there are really great books out there. The one that I took my sons through is called Ikigai 2.0. You find it on the slow.co website, slow.co. It's a really great systematic way. The word Ikigai, kind of like the phrase plan de vita, in Italy, is this idea of life's purpose or meaning. And what you do is you go through this series of exercises that identify what it is that you were good at when you were a kid, what it is that makes time go by quickly for you now, what kind of things put a smile on your face when you're doing them. Even if they don't come easy to you, they might, be a little bit difficult, like I don't know, writing or working with your hands, or or helping people or service or anything like that. And you eventually kind of whittle it all down to one single succinct purpose statement for your life. And that might change from season to season of your life. For me right now, I'm really focusing on being a good leader and a good father and a good husband. So mine is to be a gracious human, humble leader, and a loving father and husband. And that's my purpose statement in life. And you want that single succinct statement that you can kind of say when the bullets of life are flying at you and when things are busy or you're stressed. So well, the first thing was just the idea of a really good single succinct purpose statement for life. I would say, if I could name a couple of others, many of these folks, they discovered happiness through prioritizing relationships and community, and a lot of the things that I think, again, we intuitively know can help with happiness. But just like the purpose statement, it's a matter of knowing that and then applying it. For me, for example, what does that look like as far as relationships and community? Well, I mean, it's everything from, family huddles in the morning, something that I know you and Lori did with your children, Patrick, to family dinners in the evening and game times as a family, to branching out into the local community and doing things like hosting dinners at our house a couple of times a month, joining up with groups. We're parts of tennis groups and pickleball groups, and times in the local community where we can go and connect with people and get away from the loneliness that, kind of ironically, we're still confronted with in an era of 5,000 Facebook friends and tons of social media connections. But it's those local flesh and blood community-based activities that a lot of the people I interviewed also really prioritize, right? Relationships, community, and family. And then I think another thing that came up over and over again was a lot of these folks have some kind of a practice in which they've carved out a time during the day to sit in silence or sit in meditation, or in some cases, even with a guy like Patrick Porter, to use things like technology, like the brain tap, to actually have a period of time where you're able to sit with your thoughts, where you're able to process your thoughts, where you're able to journal and write things down, where you're able to talk to God or commune with a higher power. And those kind of things don't just happen, right? You have to systematically plan out the time of day, whether it's early in the morning, which I think, based on your theta brainwave production, is a very good time of day to do things like that. Or maybe it's, a lot of times for me, I'll have a busy morning and it's slipping away after lunch, like cutting lunch short and having 20 minutes where I can just sit with myself before I start back into the workday. For some people, that's the evening. It might be something like a sauna session or some type of other, time of isolation in the evening. But I would say those are three things that come to mind: would be developing a sense of purpose and honing that down into a single succinct purpose statement for your life, branching out into the local community to build relationships, and also, if you have a family, really prioritizing, again, systematically meeting with and hanging with the family at home, and then having a certain time during the day where you're going inside, where you're sitting with the silence, sometimes even the painful thoughts, where you're meditating, where you're journaling, and where you just have, even just as little as 20 minutes carved out for some me time when it comes to being with yourself. Those would be three things that come to mind.
Yeah, some of the things I think are kind of important insights there and considerations are what you're describing about, there's the social interactions, but then there's also, who are you and how are you alone with your thoughts, right? One of my mentors, Dr. Nathaniel Brandon, used to say to me, he said, it's one thing, to be in your day, and especially if you're somebody who's interacting with people throughout the day and you're in social environments. He said, but what matters most is, how do you feel when you wake up alone in bed at 3 a.m.? Now, how are you feeling about yourself? Kind of like self-esteem versus social self-esteem is how he would describe it. And he used to emphasize how much that mattered. And he used to say, because he wrote 20 books, he said, I can't roll over in bed in the middle of the night and hug my books. So you start to figure out you can get very, like, entrepreneurs especially can get very obsessive about what they got to get done in what periods of time, and how much, how productive they want to be, how much value creation they want to do. But if you're destroying your relationships or marriage, what have you, over your work, his point was I can't wake up 3 o'clock in the morning and hug my books. So you got to think about those things, and that's tough for a lot of people because what I see is social media being the distraction. As soon as you can be alone and check in with your own thoughts, you can whip out your phone and start, reeling through Instagram or Twitter, and get completely distracted from what you're really feeling at a point in time. And sometimes those are difficult times to be alone with your thoughts and to process where you are and check in with that. But one of the questions I guess I would have for you, based on this and maybe some other facets of it, Ben, is the issue. Did the issue of identity come up during this for in a meaningful way, or do you have views just even personally on how the sense of identity plays a role in the type of happiness that you do or don't experience in your life?
No, I've never really thought much about sense of identity, and I don't recall it coming up much. So, maybe you could speak more to that than I could, Patrick. But one thing that does come to mind that I did think about when you were, talking about, waking up at night and this idea of being able to escape into social media. This is something my wife and I were talking about yesterday. In fact, I think that the nighttime and sleep, it's something that, I think Dr. Andrew Huberman is going through a series with Dr. Matt Walker right now on sleep and sleep optimization and, hacking sleep and the like. But sometimes, similar to that idea of carving out 20 minutes to sit with yourself during the day, sometimes like figuring out the dozen different ways you can hit yourself with a sledgehammer at night to somehow fall asleep, all the different sleep drugs and natural sleep aids and CBD and THC and your 8 sleep mattress and all these things. Well, sometimes the evening when things wind down and your phone's actually off with it should be, and you're lying in bed at night, that's a time to actually process and think. And sometimes it is a time when you can sit with yourself and think about things. I have a journal by my bedside with a little red light headlamp and one of those little pilot pens that lights up. And sometimes if you have a lot of difficulty sleeping because you have a lot of thoughts and a lot of things to process, the world tells you a lot of times these days that there's something wrong with you and you have insomnia and you need to figure out the next best sleep drug or sleep supplement to actually get to sleep, when in fact that can be the time that basically you're getting a big message that you've got things that you need to process that you were just escaping the rest of the day because all of the busy things were leaping out from your phone and social media and work. And I would say that one thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately is, hey, if you can't sleep at night, maybe that means you have some things that you need to process. It's not that you need to figure out the next latest greatest sleep drug.
100%. And it's important, I think, to voice the fact that pharmaceuticals maybe are appropriate in a crisis, but they're not a way to solve any of the problems that we're talking about here. It's not something, in my mind, they lead you down a bad path as far as saying, if you require, what's more natural than sleep? And if you require drugs to go to sleep or drugs to be happy, etc., the long-term impact of that is something that is not something you want to deal with in your future. Are you up for?
You've got smart drugs, dopamine precursors, and neurotransmitter aids, and all these things that people use to feel good. And frankly, it is kind of shocking how much of a chemical crutch that stuff can become. I think that there's definitely something to be said for the idea like we were talking about earlier, walking and cold and heat. And it's not as though you can't shift yourself into a state of better well-being during the day. There's nothing wrong with that. But if your idea of happiness is, hey, let's figure out how I can tweak the dopamine even more with the next latest, nootropic or smart drug or whatever, then if you run out of that stuff, or you find yourself on a desert island, without your favorite go-to thing that makes you happy, then you're going to be up the creek without a paddle. So you got to be careful with that stuff also.
Yeah, and not to mention, typically, they change the neurochemistry of your body over time, or your brain over time, and like that. If you're taking SSRIs, that's your body's going to adapt to that. If you're taking any of these types of drugs that all have they're psychoactive or psychotropic drugs, you're over time your body adapts to whatever you're taking, and then you have new problems. So to your point, you got to figure out natural means to get this handled. So are you up for some questions if I jump in?
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right. So putting on my reading glasses, I'll start with some easy ones. I'm not going to, some of you, and you submitted your names, which is great. I'm not going to say the names just to, for privacy's purposes, but it says, my job is necessary, but is heavily stressful. What strategies can I use to manage stress and cultivate a more positive mindset in my daily life so I don't have to bring it home? And I think many of the things you already said, Ben, were are directly applicable. Anything else that you'd say directly about job stress?
I'm working on the updated version of my book Boundless right now, and chapter 3 is all about stress and stress management. And of course, there's a wide variety of ways that you can manage stress. Meditation and yoga and movement and journaling and even talk therapy and relationship management, things along those lines. But in that chapter of the book, one thing that I highlight and get into great detail on is breath work, right? Of course, we heard even when we were children, many of us, hey, if you're angry, take a deep breath, or count from 10 down to 1, breathing with each number. But the idea of these more systematic breathwork protocols, like Wim Hof protocol, deep breath in, let it go 40 times, with a hold at the end of the 40 rounds, and then repeating that 2 to 3 times. The idea of using an app like Breath Source or Othership, or even a lot of the YouTube breathwork sessions that you can download and follow. Not only has breathwork been researched as far as its ability to be able to assist with a lot of the biochemical responses to stress and even mental resilience, but it's something that you feel really good after. And just like exercise, or say like a cold plunge or heat, I would say the first anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes of breath work, like if you're going to do a 20-minute breath work session, for example, it is a little bit hard. Like your physiology has to shift, and some of the gases in your bloodstream need to shift before you actually kind of feel like you get into the groove. But there's really not anybody who I haven't had over to my house and bring through a breathwork session, or anybody who I haven't had download an app like those apps that I mentioned, who has done breathwork and not come back and said, "Man, this has changed my life. I feel incredible." It's nearly addicting as far as that feel good effect that you get afterwards. And I like it too, because honestly, more people can handle like daily breath work than can really, crave like a cold plunge or, a hard exercise session or something like that. I mean, breath work, it can literally be, because I travel all the time, sitting on the floor of the hotel room, even doing something as simple as 5 to 10 minutes. So I think probably the number one strategy that is underemphasized and that's incredibly effective for stress management is breath work.
Great. And to me, the question has a part of the solution inherent, is saying is recognizing the fact that you are stressed at work, and secondly, that you have an intention not to bring that stress home. So putting this habit in of breath work and doing it either probably either if you do it in the car before you walk in the house, or if you can, walk in the house, say hello, but go to a private space where you can do whatever the practices are that you decide to adopt, breath work and otherwise, do that, and then come and be with your family. It will change your state basically. So that's how you don't carry it home and don't have your family impacted by it.
Yeah, and I mean, just to harp on that real quick, Patrick, is, even though I work from home, a lot of times I do have meetings in the city. A lot of times I'm flying and coming home from the airport. I actually stop at the bottom of the driveway and I'll take a few deep breaths. I'll process. I'll close my eyes. I'll smile, which changes your state. And so even just that brief pause at the bottom of the driveway, like my car's sitting there for like 1 or 2 minutes, but that allows me to walk into the house way more stable. So sometimes it's literally like a super quick pause before you come home to the family, and that can be all it takes sometimes.
Yep. And those little things can make a huge difference. All right, what do I do? What do I do if I live with a narcissist and can't leave? Happiness in marriage is forced. Do I dare make advancements in my career or friend circles? With the series called Hacking Happiness, what type of quiet happiness could I hack? Let me just say that we did release a series also called The Narcissist Trap. So I don't. I'd be on the lookout for maybe a re-release of that to see if there might be something there. But one of the questions I would have for you, and then Ben, I'm going to ask you to chime in, is why can't you leave? If you're with someone and it's harmful to you, it's psychologically harmful to you, you've got a conclusion that this person is a narcissist. I don't know if that's a description or a diagnosis, but to me, the idea of saying I'm forced to stay in this, but how do I find happiness seems somewhat incompatible. But what are your thoughts, Ben?
It depends. I think that we live in an era of kind of like serial relationships that occurs prior to committed relationships. Tinder, swipe, left, right, try a few people out, experiment. If they don't work out, move on. And sometimes we take that into a long-term relationship, this idea that, hey, if somebody's not compatible with me, again, I just leave. And I think that there is something to be said for working on a relationship, for therapy, for prayer, for talk, and for kind of like trusting in the idea that at least trying to help that person change before moving on can be a good idea. As you alluded to, Patrick, you certainly run into issues where, sometimes a relationship is so toxic that that person is simply not going to change, and it's harmful for you, psychologically and sometimes even physically to be in that relationship. But I think that, for me, I've had a lot of relationships with people where I'm like, man, this person's energy is really bringing me down, or I just don't need this person in my life. And I've adopted this idea that everybody can change. And the first thing you do is at least attempt to help facilitate that change before moving on. Like, the moving on isn't the first option. It's the second option after you've tried to make things work or tried to help that person be a better version of themselves. But yeah, I mean, if that's not happening, then sometimes, getting out of a relationship is, something that has to be done. But just kind of depends on the scenario and also on, how much they're able to change.
Yeah, and I agree with you. The thing is to bring it to, I think you got to confront it as compared to, in other words, getting lost in friend circles or career is not the answer, in my mind. And the hard thing to do is to confront it. And, in therapy is probably a really good idea, I would say. And to Ben's point, I think I agree 100%, but if the person's not willing to do that or not willing to try to work on it, then I don't know what choices you have left. So, yeah, I don't really, I guess the point is this: the implication of the question is, Hey, I'm in a bad marriage, so how can I hack happiness while I'm in a bad marriage? And the answer is you don't. I mean, can you find moments of happiness? Can you find ways to do something that will take your mind off it or that will make you happy for brief periods of time? In my mind, happiness is foundational. And if you're married, the marriage is foundational to that happiness. And trying to be a fundamentally happy person in a really bad marriage, I don't think those two things go together. So try to get that figured out. All right. Next question. Okay. So here's one, just a follow up on what you just said, Ben. What are your favorite breathwork apps? I think you mentioned a couple, but can you re-mention if you can?
There's one called Othership instead of Mothership. Othership. I like it because it's got like good music and a DJ like experience. Really great through headphones. Pretty well organized and well produced as far as options for anywhere from like 2 to 5 minute relaxation or upregulation breathwork sessions, all the way down to like 90-minute holotropic-ish, long, nearly psychedelic breathwork sessions. So that one's really good. There's another one called The Breath Source. This one kind of like has a different series of instructors, and you get to choose which instructor you want to watch or experience based on their teaching style. I'm actually on that app and have a lot of spiritually oriented breathwork sessions like Jesus prayer and sessions that are based on like scripture and Bible memorization and things like that. From 10 minutes, I think I've got one on there that's kind of a kick your butt, like 80-minute session. So that one's really good. And then there's a few good YouTube channels. I think a lot of times with this idea of Wim Hof breath work, a lot of people get kind of out of control and turn into like a when in fact, that's really not the way that breath work is intended to be done. It's deep, deep inhales, belly, chest, head, and then just a real relaxed, letting it go, exhale. I think one of the better instructors, like if you just want some free YouTube sessions, or if you have YouTube Premium and you want to download some sessions for offline viewing, so your phone isn't bugging you while you're doing a session, there's a guy named Kitaro Waga, Kitarowaga. My sons and I have been doing a lot of his sessions recently. He's got some good like 10 to 25-minute-ish sessions. So that's another good one. There's probably a dozen different apps on the App Store for breath work, but Othership, Breath Source, and some of these better instructors on YouTube are typically where I'll go to. I would say the last one to consider is, for nighttime sleep, relaxation type of deep body scans and breath work combined with what are called non-sleep deep rest protocols, which is really great, especially if you do have difficulty sleeping and you want a chance to like think, scan your body, etc. There's another one on YouTube, Allie Boothroyd, just Boothroyd, Royd, and she's got some really great like non-sleep deep rest and yoga nidra protocols, and she's got just a really great voice, anywhere from like 20-minute sessions all the way to like 8-hour sessions that I've done on long airplane trips before. So those are a few resources to think about.
Beautiful, thank you. My daughter struggles with mental illness, which has a significant impact on my entire family. While we have excellent therapists and have found medication to support her daily life, there is a noticeable disconnect among siblings. I don't want to wait for them to grow up and be friends as adults. It breaks my heart to see rivalry. So I guess the question is dealing with some significant challenges in the family regarding kids. What are the practices to help me be happy and not be heartbroken while you're seeing sibling rivalry?
So this is a question for me.
Yeah, well, for both of us, but do you have some thoughts about it?
I haven't had to deal a whole lot with sibling rivalry and things like that. I can't say I have deep thoughts on this one. I mean, I pretty much have always had this approach of radical transparency and honesty when I'm speaking with my siblings, and pretty much anything I just drag out right away and talk about it. And so, for me, my approach has always just talking and processing, just hands open and with a lot of transparency and honesty. But I don't know, you might be able to speak to this one a little better, Patrick.
Yeah, well, first of all, I thought that was great advice. Secondly, this is kind of an identity thing here. You're obviously a parent. I don't know if you're married or not. And yes, I don't know a lot of things, because one of the things I can tell you is that when we're facing any significant challenges, within my family, my wife and I, we're married. We'll be 24 years this year. The first thing to do is for her and I to get very connected and stable to face this together, and having that ability to have that soulmate, spouse, whomever, enter into this with you, builds a foundation where you can do something maybe powerful and life-changing for your kids. And I think it's kind of one of the really important things about parenting, is that you have that strength that can be brought to your kids, because if there are issues, one child has some type of mental illness, the support for the family around that is really, really important, and the foundation for that, I think, is the parent. Again, I'm not a mental health professional, but in the end, I think it really gets back to what Ben was saying at the very, very opening is, okay, you have a context now. You've got this challenge in your family. Number one, check your premise around this, meaning, do you feel like because you have a daughter who's mentally ill that happiness is not possible for you? What's your premise? Or is your view of reality or your premise that even though we have this challenge in our life, we can, I can still find happiness or a way to be happy in my life? Ben, you probably know the old, parable better than I do, but it goes something like this. Everybody in the village brought their problems to a campfire and were able to leave with whatever ones they wanted. Everybody put their problems literally on the ground around the campfire, and you can take somebody else's if you prefer and leave yours there. And the parable goes, everybody left with the problems they came with, meaning everybody's got something.
Yeah, I've never heard that parable before. That's interesting.
Yeah. So I didn't really do it justice. It's probably a 5-minute thing. I tried to just give the punchline, but the whole point is that there's no such thing as a family or a person that doesn't have some sort of challenges in their life. And every time, like right now, when things are coming up in my day, for context, I have one of my really longtime dear friends, who's got 4 young kids, who's diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And 3 or 4 months after his diagnosis, and he's been working hard to figure out a way to go into remission, his wife is diagnosed with stage 4 colorectal cancer. So I don't know what you think your problems are, anybody who's listening to us or watching us right now, or what I think my problems are, but I'll take my problems back from the campfire, seeing the types of things that other people are facing right now. So I think the first thing is to not feel like you're a victim in a circumstance, and you get into that victim mentality, but it's to recognize life sometimes is about challenges and hard things. For me personally, it's my faith that helps me deal with these situations, and that's one thing to check into is, do you have a faith? What is that faith? How does it inform you? What does it do for you as far as giving you comfort, giving you joy, giving you empowering you to deal with challenging circumstances? There's a lot there that I think you can unpack, but I think it starts with take your own problems home from the campfire and recognize the blessings in your life, even though you have some challenges. All right. All right, here's another one. these are again, I got to throw these to Dr. Greenfield because these are kind of challenges for professionals. Married 25 years, 4 adult kids, grandkids, now divorced. Married a second time, divorced after abuse and control. Dating a gal for 2 years, and she wants to get married. I have been through the ringer, and right now everything is good. I don't want to change anything. I'm afraid of making any large commitments. I'm happy. How do my girlfriend and I find the same level of happiness if we want something so different?
I don't know if I understand the question. He's saying his girlfriend wants something different than he does?
His girlfriend wants to get married, but he's gun shy because of his past experiences.
Oh, yeah. I mean, these are more like counseling questions. I'm not sure I have a good answer to that. I mean, I'm a personal trainer. I work with, with a lot of physical and biological issues, and I feel like I'm stepping outside my boundaries in an authentic way to pretend like I have the answer to that question. I can tell you, like, as far as I'm concerned, my own experience with myself and a lot of my friends is, you're never ready when you get married. Like, you never feel like, oh, I'm totally prepared. This is the time. Everything's set up. It's the same with kids, right? Like, a lot of this, you kind of just take the plunge and jump into the deep end. And I don't know the nature of the relationship or any of the dynamics or anything like that. I can tell you that, I wouldn't necessarily set yourself up with the expectation of being 100% ready for anything. And neither would I set yourself up with the expectation that, in a relationship, you're always going to agree about everything and always have the same goals. It's more about figuring out ways to exist in states of incompatibility and to be able to get along as much as it is, finding someone who's compatible with you, because you're never gonna 100% find that. But yeah, I can't say I know enough about the relationship or anything like that to pretend like I've got good advice to give here.
Yeah, I mean, most of these questions are outside of our realm. Unfortunately, so I'm not. I don't feel qualified to give advice either. But I guess the only thing I would say that has been a practice for me of late is that when I'm considering decisions about my future, I'm breaking all ties with my past. And that's a tough thing to do, because in part, things that have happened in your past are there to kind of protect you and guide you into not letting bad things happen to you again in the future. But it's also very constricting and limiting. And it was in a deep meditation that I had maybe 4 or 5 months ago, where it was almost like an image. I could see like all the attachments from my past attached to my spine almost, and realizing I have to cut all that off so I can create a future. The past doesn't and should not create, be equal to future. But if your past is constantly driving your decisions, then you kind of end up on that cycle or a treadmill. I don't know how that might or might not relate to this and your girlfriend and the subject of marriage. I would just say I just consider, no matter what, and this is really advice for everybody, no matter what your circumstances are, if you can break ties with the past and be who you are now, not who you were in the past, in making a decision, it's probably a better context from which to make that decision. So, all right, these are tough ones, Ben. Huh? So this last one, I don't know that we're gonna have any solutions for. I'm gonna read it only because I'm hoping, because I want to pray for this person, and I want to pray for healing. It's a very tough circumstance. I read the question, and it's I'm just hoping by even reading it and saying we care might be helpful, but I don't know that we have an answer. The question was this: is how can I overcome the obstacles that are preventing me from being happy? My body is slowly dying. There isn't an hour where pain does not meet me. I have young children, a live-in nurse, and a husband who is exhausted from fathering, mothering, and helping me live, quote unquote. My physical capabilities has limited my spatial awareness and sense of happiness. Not even taste of food is available to me anymore. So again, I need help answering, how can I overcome these obstacles that are preventing me from being happy. So again, I don't know, you're obviously the description of your circumstance is this is another example of for other people who are answering questions, maybe you'll take your problems home from the campfire. That's a serious challenge, and I'm very sorry to even read this and learn of your challenges. To me, this is where I think turning to spirituality, faith, whatever that might be for you, is something that's probably very critical. So Ben, I don't know if you have any commentary on this at all.
I think I have the same take as you do, Patrick, that, everyone's body fails at some point, some earlier in life, some later in life, some in a more painful way, which it sounds like is the case here, and some in a more predictable way, with just old age. But I think that, as you've alluded to, no matter what happens with the body, spirit is the part of you that can go on to be eternally bright and there forever as a bright and living soul. And so I think that focusing on connection to a higher power, on prayer, on worship, on community, on reading uplifting literature, like the Bible or devotionals or scripture, I think all of those things can help to feed the soul, even when the body feels like it's failing or fading quickly. And so absolutely, this is something that the community and that Patrick and I can pray about. I believe in the power of prayer, especially in situations like this. And I would also encourage you to go to that one part of you that that the failures of a biological system can't touch, and that your spirit and that your soul feed that, nourish that, and dwell in that. And that's the best advice that I can give here.
Yeah, again, very, very sorry. The one thing that I would just maybe contemplate, one of the things that just comes to mind as Ben was talking is, because you said you have young children, and a lot of times, and I think this is true of maybe every one of these questions to a large degree, the answer is, so what can I do? And I think probably the bigger question for you right now is, who do I need to be right now? I'm in this very bad circumstance. My body is slowly dying. I've got young children, and the people that you love and care about, your children, your husband, they're witness to what's going on. And if you think about what you want the long-term effects of this circumstance to be on them, the question would be, who do I need to be right now given these very challenging circumstances? And that's where I think if they could see you turn to support, to a higher power, whatever that is for you, and find some grace in that and some solace in that, that not only will it be good for you, but I think for those who love you and feel helpless in the circumstance, it might leave them with some comfort that would be meaningful to them in their future. So anyway, sorry, very sorry, and our prayers do go out to you. So anyway, Ben, that wraps up the questions at least we have in front of us. I appreciate you taking the time. First of all, I just appreciate you doing this whole Hacking Happiness series. I really think you did a brilliant job of exploring these topics and having these conversations and making them very meaningful for the people who watch the series. For you who have tuned in, if you don't own the series yet, we are coming to the very end of the free viewing period. So it's still available to you for a couple more days here. And if you are thinking about getting the series and making it a part of your life that I think would be very meaningful, now is the time to pull the trigger on that. Either way, if you even just got to watch it during the free viewing period and it had some impact or create value for you, I can tell you that speaking for Ben and for us at Revealed Films, we're just thrilled that you tuned in, and our hope and wish is that it added value to your life somehow and made a difference for you. So thank you very much. Ben, if you have a final thought before we tie up.
Well, let me think. I agree, Patrick. I think the series turned out really well. I encourage everybody to watch, to take notes. I know it can kind of be intimidating to have a whole series of videos that you got to get through, but just take it video by video. And, for me, each of these conversations was really meaningful, and there's not a single one that I didn't walk away from with at least, one really actionable tip. And so yeah, I just encourage folks, like, go through them all. Like, this is just pure gold when it comes to happiness. And, after doing a lot of podcasts on my show and talking with a lot of people, some of these folks on this series, they're just absolutely incredible as far as the advice goes, and type of stuff you normally have to just, like, pay a counselor or a therapist, I suppose, to talk about. But these folks are all just spilling their secrets right and left. So yeah, go through as many as you can if you're watching, because your life's going to be better for it. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you. Well, Ben, thanks for taking us on a walk with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's always motivating to just watch you in action, thinking and moving. And again, just much appreciation for everything that you do.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks, Patrick. And let's go hack some happiness together. I love you guys.
Right on. Love you too, brother.
Okay.
For you that tuned in, thanks for being here.